Hey everybody, this is Ben, Kessler Crane, and today we're going to take a look at the Second Shooter Plus Complete Bundle, which I have right here. So let's get started. First thing Second Shooter Complete Bundle comes with is this super cool hard case, which is really nice. Store your Second Shooter Plus in, or you can panhandle on the side of the street. Start a little like drum thing. No? Not funny? Let's take a look inside this hard case. So everything is cut so that all of the pieces of the Second Shooter Plus Complete Bundle fit in really nicely. So let's start pulling stuff out. First thing, we got this little toolkit, which I'm going to open up. First thing comes with an extra belt for the Second Shooter motor. We've got an extension cable for our camera control cable, our short Cat 5 cable. We've got a USB cable, so you use that to update the controller of the Second Shooter Plus. And then we've got this little tool kit. We've got a little cable clip inside of our tool bag. We've got a 1/4-20 and a 3/8/16 camera screw, washer, and our Allen wrench. So that we don't need anymore. So let's keep going. Kit also comes with 2 more long Cat 5 cables. Let's see. We've got our chargers for our MagPack batteries. Camera control cable, looks like this one is for Canon. And you can choose your camera control cable based on what kind of camera you shoot. So Sony or Fuji or whatever, you just get the camera control cable that's compatible with your camera. We've got a DC adapter for the Second Shooter Plus controller. Typically these ship with extra ends, so if you have international plugs, you have the right plug that can snap onto the front. But since we are in the United States, mine has a United States plug on the end. Let's see what else. We've got our motor mount for a slider. These are barrel-to-barrel cords, so these will go from our MagPack battery to our Second Shooter Plus controller to give it power. Got an extra pulley. We've got 2 MagPack batteries. We've got our Second Shooter motor, which has your standard pulley and then a smaller pulley here that's used to increase the speed of the motor. Second Shooter Plus controller. And our Second Shooter pan and tilt head. Wait for it. Did I get everything? Okay. We've also got our 2 screws here, which are used to attach the Second Shooter motor to the motor plate for the slider. And that is everything. Now we're going to go over how to mount our Second Shooter Plus 3-axis system onto one of our sliders. So for this example, we're using our Cine slider. So I'm going to remove the drag knob, the drag disc, remove the spring, set those aside. I'm going to take the motor mount, mount it onto the slider. I'm going to tighten down this indexing screw here. Then I'm going to take our pulley, put it back on, and I'm going to put this drag knob back on. Now I'm going to tighten this down, but I'm not going to tighten it tight. I'm just going to snug it down because I want to keep that knob from, I want to keep this pulley from being able to move, but I don't want it so tight that it locks it down. I'm going to take our motor, put it on, and attach it with the screws that come with your complete bundle. I'm going to put my mag pack on and my Second Shooter Plus controller. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install our pan and tilt head. There's a couple different ways you can do that. One easy way to do it is to get one of our flat mount adapters, and that just screws on, and then the pan and tilt head screws on top, like so. Another great way to mount our pan and tilt head is to get a camera short plate, put that on the bottom, and then mount one of our Kessler quick releases. The kit also comes with one quarter 20 and one 3/8/16 screw that you can use to mount a camera to the top of the pan and tilt head. So you can mount a camera that way, or what we suggest is getting one of our quick releases and putting them on top as well. So now what we need to do is plug in all of our cables. So we're going to take our short cable and we're going to go from our motor to the top of the controller where it says slider. We're going to take one of our longer cables and we're going to go to the tilting motor and we're going to go to tilt. Then we'll take our last cable and it plugs into the side. That gets plugged into pan. Then we can put our controller back on. The last thing we want to do is take our barrel to barrel and go from our MagPack battery to our Second Shooter Plus controller. And now the whole system is ready to go. We just need a camera and something to shoot. Sometimes you'll notice sometimes cables can get a little messy. So a really great solution is to use one of our cable management systems. So that's just a simple sleeve that wraps around these cables and helps keep them organized and out of the way. So I'm going to put one of those on now. Now that the cord management control is installed, you can see it really helps keep all of your cables nice and organized. The Second Shooter Complete Bundle also comes with stickers. These stickers are used to label your cables. So that way you can tell very quickly which cable's which. So especially if you're plugging cables into the pan and tilt head, then you come over here to plug in cables to your Second Shooter Plus controller. You can just very quickly identify which one's which. So you could use your tilt sticker, put it on your tilt cable on both ends, and then you don't have to trace the cable all the way to the other end. Some people also like to use colored tape. Maybe they would do like red tape on the end of the tilt cable on both ends so they can tell very quickly which cable's which. But we do include this sticker pack for that purpose, which is kind of cool. Now we're going to go over some of the things you can do with your Second Shooter Plus Complete Bundle. So I'm going to grab my Second Shooter Plus controller. I'm going to turn it on. And the first thing you're going to see is standalone, master slave, Wi-Fi settings, and motor options. So we're going to go to standalone. And the first thing we're going to go over is programming a move. So we're going to select that, and you can do either 2 or 3 keyframes with your move. So for our example, we're going to do 2. So now using the controller, we're going to set our first keyframe. And while moving, if you hold down Shift, it'll move a little faster. So we're going to set this as our first keyframe. We're going to slide over. I'm going to set our second keyframe. You then have the option for loop scrub, run once, time lapse, and stop motion. So the first one we're going to go over is loop scrub. So let's hit enter. And the first option you get is time. So this is how long it's going to take to complete the move between your 2 keyframes. So we're going to keep that at 10 seconds. And then you have ramp. And what ramp is the amount of time it takes for the slider or the second shooter to get up to speed and then to slow down and stop. So set at 50%, that means the first 25% of our 10-second move is going to be speeding up to full speed. And then the last 25% is going to be slowing down. And what that does is it helps your moves be very, very smooth from start to finish. If you just start at full speed, it can be a little jerky. So that helps everything run really smoothly. So now we're going to select run. So it's going to go back to our first keyframe. And it's going to start looping through our move. And it'll do that continuously. Now what we can do while this is looping is we can hit enter and it'll change to scrubbing. And what that lets us do is it lets us manually move through our set move. And that's loop scrub. Now if we go back, we can also select run once. Now if we select run once, we get the same options, time and ramp. We'll keep that at 10 seconds and 50%. And now we're going to select run. And it's going to go back to our first keyframe. And it's going to run through our move one time and then stop. So that's run once. Now we're going to go to our third option, which is time lapse. You'll notice that I've gone ahead and I've connected a camera control cable. Now there's 2 things you can do. You can set your camera to bulb, which will let your Second Shooter Plus controller control the exposure time, or you can set your camera manually, and then you can set the Second Shooter Plus controller to match those settings, which I'll show you right now. So let's select time lapse, and we're going to do shoot, move, shoot. So we're going to hit enter, and we have the camera set on bulb. So we're going to set the exposure on our Second Shooter Plus controller. So I'm going to keep it at 0.5 seconds. I'm going to leave it at a 1 second delay. So it's going to take a photo, wait 1 second, move, and then take the other photo. We're going to do 50 photos, which is going to be a run time of 1 minute and 14 seconds. So let's hit enter. We're going to keep our ramp at 50%. Let's hit start. So now it's going to take a photo, move, and take a photo. So let's hit pause, and then let's back out, and let's go to continuous. So continuous gives you all the same setting options. So let's hit enter, keep ramp at 50%. It's going to go to our first keyframe, And instead of taking a photo, moving, stopping, taking a photo, moving, stopping, and taking a photo, the Second Shooter Plus 3-axis is just going to move very, very slowly through your move and take photos continuously through that move. So let's hit pause. So that is shooting a time lapse with Second Shooter Plus. So now let's go down to stop motion. So stop motion is going to let you select the number of photos. So we're going to keep it at 20. Select your ramp, which will keep it 50%. And then by hitting enter, you can toggle between auto advance and manual advance. So let's select manual advance. And then hit enter. It's going to go to our first keyframe. And you'll notice that we're at photo 1 of 20. And if we hit enter, it's going to take our photo. Then we can hit the right arrow, go to photo number 2, hit enter, and it'll let us take our next photo. And so you can manually scroll through your 20 photographs. Now let's go back. And this time we're going to select auto advance and next. And now we're going to click enter. And then it's going to automatically advance to our next photograph. So we're not having to hit the arrow button to go to the next photo. So those are the 4 ways that you can program a move on Second Shooter Plus. The next thing we're going to go over is manual move. So let's go ahead and select that. So with manual move, you get a few options. You get speed, and we're going to keep it at 100% for this example. Ramp, which will keep it 50%. And now we're going to set our calibration limits. So what this does, it allows you to set how far each of the axes will go on the Second Shooter Plus. So let's select that. So let's bring the pan and tilt head here, and we're going to mark our begin. And then let's slide down this way, and we'll mark our end. Now let's hit start. So now this is going to let me manually control all 3 axes with my controller. And because I've calibrated those axes, it will only stay within my calibrated axis. So if I'm doing a live move and I'm looking at my subject and I'm sliding the camera, I don't have to worry about the carriage slamming into the end of my slider and damaging the motors. For now, we're going to skip over to settings. The first option we have in settings is operating mode. And that's the same menu we had at the very beginning when we turned on our Second Shooter Plus controller. It allows you to select standalone mode, master slave. And master slave is important when you're using 2 Second Shooter Plus controllers or 1 Second Shooter Plus controller and 1 Second Shooter controller in bridge mode. Wi-Fi settings, which allows you to enable or disable Wi-Fi. And motor options. So motor options are going to allow me to enable or disable any of my axes. It's going to let me enable or disable fast mode, and it's going to allow me to enable or disable quiet mode. The next thing we have is control options. Now, control options is going to allow me to swap all of my buttons. So I can swap L1 and R2, L2, R2, and up and down. The next is firmware update, which when you're updating your controller's firmware with your PC or Mac, you're going to use that option to update. The last option is lash compensation. This is something that's set up here at Kessler Crane headquarters. and that helps to eliminate any lash in the gears in the motors. And really, those settings shouldn't be adjusted unless you're working with a Kessler Crane customer service tech. Another feature in the Second Shooter Plus controller is runtime optimization. And that works with loop, scrub, and run once. So what I've done is I've set a 2 keyframe move, and you can see here that it's set for 10 seconds with a ramp at 50%. Now, if you hit shift twice, the screen will say calculating, and it'll automatically determine the fastest possible settings to complete that move. So let's go back out, go to run once, and let's just, for example, change the time to 7 seconds and the ramp to 94. If we hit shift twice, it'll say calculating, and again, it'll automatically determine the fastest possible settings to complete that move. A great accessory for the Second Shooter Plus is our Digital Control Center. The Digital Control Center lets you manually control 3 axes at a time, and you can toggle between 6 axes of control. So this one I have set up for slide, pan, and tilt. So you can see I'm getting full joystick control. So when you're setting moves up, doing manual moves, it's super awesome to have this system connected to your Second Shooter Plus. There are 3 basic things you can do with the Digital Control Center. 1, you can set up basic 2 and 3 axis moves. 2, you can do manual control of your system. And 3, you can record your manual moves and then play those moves back, which makes it a really great accessory for Second Shooter Plus. Some other great accessories for the Second Shooter Plus with one of our sliders are these accessories here. Our first one is our HD angle plate. This is a really great accessory to mount on your slider with your Second Shooter Plus system, as it gives you swivel and then lets you adjust the angle and will hold up to 50 pounds. So it gives you a lot of versatility if you're angling your slider or if you want to angle your camera to get some cool different shots with your slider moves. Another great accessory is our MagnaLink pan mount. And this mounts right around the pan and tilt head. And it allows you to mount your controller and MagPack battery right next to the pan and tilt head, which is really convenient, especially if you're shooting off of a tripod. So that makes this a really great accessory if you have your pan and tilt head mounted to a tripod, or if you are shooting with more than 3 axes, or if you have one of our fizz motors mounted to your camera. It keeps all of the cables and everything nice and neat and compact. Another great accessory is our extra large quick stand. Cool thing you can do with this is if you have your pan and tilt head mounted to your quick stand, then you can set your pan and tilt head down on a table or on any flat surface. And then you can quickly relocate your pan and tilt head and still get really nice panning and tilting shots from a stationary position using that as a stand. Another great accessory is our Cinedrive fizz motor, which you can attach to the Second Shooter system using this fizz motor adapter cable. Now, if you have just a Second Shooter Plus controller, the Second Shooter Plus system, you can only control up to 3 axes. So if you're using a fizz motor, you can substitute one of those axes for the fizz motor. So you can do, for example, slide, pan, and control the fizz motor. If you are using the Second Shooter Plus in bridge mode with the Second Shooter controller, you can control up to 6 axes, which means that you can still have slide, pan, tilt, and fizz motor and be able to control all of those at the same time. 2 other great accessories for your Second Shooter Plus 3-axis bundle or a Second Shooter 3-axis bundle would be the high-speed pan axis and the 500 series high torque motor. The Second shooter high-speed pan axis is going to be a really great accessory if you're shooting live video. For example, with the high-speed pan axis, you can do a 360-degree move in 3 seconds with a Second Shooter Plus controller. Or you can do 360 degrees in 4.4 seconds with the standard Second Shooter controller. This is a big increase because with the regular pan axis, it takes about 8 seconds to do that 360-degree move. Now the 500 series high torque motor we suggest as an accessory if you're doing a lot of vertical or inclined moves with your slider. So it's going to take the weight limit from 10 pounds to 50 pounds when you're shooting vertically or inclined on your Second Shooter or Second Shooter Plus 3-axis system. Another great accessory for the Second Shooter Plus 3-axis system is a turntable. So I'm going to go over real quick installing the turntable. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to take the head off of our pan and tilt controller. We're going to do that by removing these 2 screws here. I'm going to do that now. Since I have this one screw off, I'm going to show you guys a little hack that we like to do in the studio. We take 2 of these 1/4-20 screws. So if you replace the 1/4-20 screws with these, it makes it easier to take the tilt axis off. So once the tilt axis is removed, we can install our turntable conversion kit. That installs with these 4 1/4-20 flathead screws, and that mounts right on to the top. So now that I have that mounted, I can mount my turntable. So now we have our turntable installed. And I'll point out we do have several options for turntables. Turntables come in both white and black, and they'll have matching screws that go with the turntable. And they come in 12 inches, 18 inches, and 24 inches in diameter. So now that I have my turntable installed, I'm going to grab my Second Shooter Plus controller. And I'm going to select turntable. And using my up and down arrows, I'm going to set speed. So I'm going to set speed at 30%, hit enter. And now using my pan buttons, I can choose the direction that the turntable starts spinning. So just to give you guys some reference, I'm going to toss this quick release receiver on top of the turntable. You can see it's spinning. And I can change direction if I want. We can also go to Program Move. And just like we did earlier, we can set 2 keyframes. So I'm going to set my first keyframe. I'm going to set my second keyframe. And we can do a loop or a scrub between those keyframes. We can run once, do time lapse or stop motion. So you can also do all of the same moves with Program Move that you can do with your pan axis with the turntable on, which makes this a really great accessory for your Second Shooter Plus 3-axis system. So that completes our video for the Second Shooter Plus 3-axis system. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@kesslercrane.com. Also in this video at the bottom, we'll have linked our PDF for our Second Shooter Plus user manual. So if you want to get more detailed into everything that the Second Shooter Plus can do, you can go right to that manual and check it out. Also, you can go to support.kesslercrane.com, and we have tons of support documents, manuals, and how-to videos on there that can help you use your Second Shooter Plus 3-axis system.